the Democrats are working on campaign finance laws because Citizens United passed the Supreme Court saying that corporations can spend an unlimited amount of money. And the Democrats and some Republicans want to stop that because they think that's a bad idea, that the corporations have already pretty much taken over Congress, and if you allow them to spend unlimited money, well, then the takeover will be complete. And I think they're working on a limited clock because every election cycle, corporations will get to spend more and more money, and they'll wisen up and they'll say, oh, wow, you know what? Before we were kind of buying these guys, now we can completely buy them. So I think this has got to get resolved by 2010. If you wait till 2012, we're in a whole heap of trouble. Okay, by then it might be too late. Now, the law that they're working on from Senator Schumer and then Representative Van Hollen in the House is actually a pretty good one. It says if you're going to do campaign ads, you've actually got to put your face on it, the CEO of the company, and there's got to be great disclosure requirements. Where's the money coming from? If you're an organization that's raising money and then spending it on political ads, if it's coming from special interests, whether it's corporations or labor unions, you've got to let us know where the money's coming from, and you got to sign off on it in a public way. Now, that makes sense. Doesn't mean you can't spend it. You just got to stand up and say, yeah, it was me. I'm the one who bought that politician and ran that ad. Okay? Not necessarily in those terms. But it's actually a rare law coming out of this Congress that is actual reform and is pretty tough. So I'm happy with it. Now, it ran into trouble, of course, right? Well, the NRA came out and said, no, we're totally against this. We think it might affect us, and we don't want to tell you where we get our money from. And then they turned to all their Republican friends and all their Democratic friends and said, all right, we're going to score you on this. So what that means is if you vote in favor of this legislation and this rule applies to the NRA, then we're going to say that you're against gun rights, okay? And we're going to knock down your gun rights score. So everybody goes into a panic, and then in the House, they work out a deal, where the deal is, all right, this law applies to everyone but the NRA, okay? Now, that's very unprincipled, it's ridiculous, and it's the Democrats caving into the guys who are going to spend money against them, right? Having said all that, I would take the deal. Okay, now why? Because this is such an important law and it's such an important issue. This is the one issue that affects all other issues, because we're not going to get real reform in finance or healthcare or any other issue if our politicians don't work for us and they work for corporations. So, and this is actually a rare good law. Take the NRA exception, take the deal, and then we'll come back and deal with the NRA thing later, okay? See, I'm a pragmatist, man. We got to get this done, because if it gets delayed and we don't get it done and it gets past the 2010 elections, well then these corporate interests and these special interests are going to grow larger and larger and larger. We're not going to be able to come back and pass this law. By the time you come back to it a second time, it's going to be much weaker until it doesn't really exist. Take the deal now. Be practical, okay? Now, unfortunately, on the Senate side, you go over there and Dianne Feinstein, who's for tighter gun regulations, says, no, this is unacceptable, this is outrageous, and I won't sign off on it. Now, here's the problem. If she keeps that up, the Republicans love to give losses to the Democrats. They'll turn around and they'll say, especially if you don't have the NRA provision, we're voting against it. And all they need is a couple of Democrats to vote against it. And if you got a filibuster, which the Republicans will do, that's it, it's gone. Then you have nothing. This is a situation where 3/4 of a loaf, trust me, is a lot better than no loaf. Now, you know me, I fought, to make sure that these things are as tough as possible, that we don't have these nonsense political deals. But bounds of reason here. This is very important. On this, I think we should definitely take the deal. And then if later you want to come back and address that NRA issue, then I'm 100% with you. Let's see what happens, because I'm afraid that this is going to be used as an excuse to not do anything, and then we're hosed on every issue.